The following podcast was recorded in April 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are all working from home with whatever technology is available to us. Please excuse any technical glitches or the slight loss of quality of which you become accustomed to. Thank you.
We interrupt your program. This is a special report coming to you from the Skills and Technology Newsroom high atop the towering metropolis of New York City. The following information has... Oh my God, I can't really do this for real. Anyway, take it away.
Welcome. I'm Joe Scott Farrell, and today on Farrell City Soundbites, we're going to dive into the differences and similarities of a music recording engineer and a TV sound engineer, or an A1 as it's referred to in broadcast. And to help kick off that conversation, I'm joined with Evan Reinstein, an engineer who lives and works on both sides of those worlds. Welcome, buddy.
What's up, Joe? It's good to see you.
Yeah, that's about all we can do is see each other.
In the virtual world.
Just so you know, Evan and I work together a lot, so it's kind of bizarre that we don't get to see each other other than on a screen. But that is life as we know it right now. So before we get started with the actual two worlds and the comparisons, tell me a little bit about how you got started in this business and where was the aha moment for you?
Well, I guess I first started by going to school, and they didn't really give me a solid direction, coming out. I wasn't very pleased with that. So I just kind of started doing whatever. I got a few internships at studios in the city, New York. Nothing came out of that. So I started doing film, sound recording on location. I bought gear. I was traveling for months and months around the United States, not making a lot of money, but that didn't make me very happy. So I contacted the Scatchafaros, see what they got going on. And so Joe actually let me have an opportunity doing broadcast A1. So it's a very different world, as Joe started off with, but that's where I am today. Now I'm a broadcast A1.
So when you were out doing the music side of it, give me some indication of what some of the typical gigs you might have been doing, because I know you had a lot of variation from A1 to A2, or engineering to just doing sound capture. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, with the music, I mean, that's a good place to start. The music, it depended on the client. That's the best way to put it. And there's a lot of different people out there. So it's either, the rap world's over here, then you got like orchestral world in the side. Then you got, people who are making experimental crap in a basement in Brooklyn, and it's like, you just kind of got to go pick it wherever you can. But the studio engineering stuff, rappers, bands, that's more vanilla. That's more classic.
You got to, I mean, did you know going in from school, or was that something you kind of felt your way through and then just had a instinctive feel for doing it?
Right. The instinctive feel came from the listening. I guess that's an ear thing. But the physical, like going in and knowing which mics to use in the studio for what, which drums, so you got two different drum kits. There's a set of mics that work better for one and a miking pattern that works better for the next. It's more about trial and error. It's more about getting reps in. And, that's why internships are important if you want to be a music engineer.
Cool. And here comes a shameless plug. Farrell Cities, we just associated ourselves with a lot of publishing companies right now, and we got a ton of some of the legendary audio engineers who've done courses. We don't have them up yet, but as I've been going through them, because that's my roots is in that side of it, the music engineering side, it was fascinating to me to realize how much detail these guys think when they're doing it. And you just said it, which mic goes where, how much, move it over by this. A lot of people just think it's an engineer, you walk into a studio, hit record, and push levels around. It's so much more than that, right?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God. And the guys you're talking about, because I've had the pleasure of seeing the list of guys you're talking about, those guys are old school, traditional. Those guys have attention to detail more so than you'll find pretty much anywhere now.
Yeah. But they have to. The technology wasn't there for them to cheat.
No, yeah.
So yeah,
But they're using analog gear. When you're using all analog gear and that's the environment that you're in, you need to know, like, yeah, you need to recall a monitor mix by memory, or you need to write it down. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot more finite details that go into that rather than, I do broadcasts, so I'll save all my presets, my scenes, and everything. I'll come in the beginning of the day and boom, just load it up right there. That's digital.
right, right,
But
right. Okay, you just did a great segue. Let's talk about
yeah,
broadcast. So when you made the transition, what was your first apprehension, and what did you realize? Oh, I got to learn. It's the same, but it's different.
right. So the basic principles of signal flow are the same. Yeah, that's pretty much never going to change. You got your source, you got your path, you got your destination. That's it. But I think the biggest thing right off the bat was lingo, was vernacular.
Yeah.
Because I walk into the room for the first time and the engineers are like, all right, we got a mix minus over here, we're sending it out to the sats over here, and I'm just like, I don't even know what a mix minus is, to be honest with you. Like, principally I knew what it was, but I never heard somebody say that before.
Right.
So it took me about probably like a year to get used to everything.
Same, absolutely the same for me, and that's in all the various sectors I've had to work in. The hardest thing is to figure out what the language is, and once I didn't know what an A1 was for the first year, 2 years I was in the business, and I kept hearing everybody talking about A1s, 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 and then I finally met one, walked into the control room, and went, "Oh, you're an audio engineer."
Yeah. They're probably like, man, I haven't heard that in a couple fortnights over here.
Yeah.
But I guess anything you get into, it's the language. I'm sure that being on the road too, because road work for concerts is something I've never done.
Right.
But you tell me a lot of stories about your days on the road.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a whole nother world too. I would have no idea what they're talking about.
Right. And again, that's what it keeps coming down to is once you learn the language, you started your setup exactly right. The paths are the same. The signal paths are the same. It's communicating with everybody. Television, putting on a PL. Talk a little bit about what the PL is and how you have to interact with that.
Yeah, the PL. The PL is a comm system. The PL stands for party line. The PL is a way for everybody to try to distract you from mixing audio. The PL is constantly barraging you, whether you have a headset on or it's playing out of the speaker in front of you. But you need it because you need to hear what's coming up next and what you're going to do next. But I mean, man, we work with a guy, both Joe and I, named Jamie. Shout out to Jamie Kiley.
Kylie.
He's a director at TD, and he is always talking. And it was so difficult for me to decipher like what was a call and what was a joke at first. But then I got real into it. I got used to it. I like it. I like that.
Yeah, that, and that's the difference too. You'll get directors because we're listening to, as a producer, I'm listening to literally everybody, every discipline that's in the control room. And I have to also focus on the actual program, so I need to know what my talent's saying. Then I've got executive producers telling me what to tell the talent. In that, you have to kind of sort out what's important. And Evan and I come from the same background. So when he first came into television, he came in with his audio engineer, music engineer ears. And would be like, Joe, I hear this. It's a 60. It doesn't matter. Let it go. Let it go. I can't.
Oh
I can't.
My God.
It's horrible.
The lights buzzing. I'm like, I walk into the studio and I'm like, Joe, there's a 16 kilohertz signal, just coming through the mix, and you just look at me and you're like, dude, don't even worry about that. I'm like, don't worry about it. How do I possibly? It's in my ears. It's my job. But that's another good segue. Is that an engineer for television is not nearly as precise as an engineer for music, because the music copy that you mix is going to live forever. Most of the TV that people are watching, they watch the episode and that's it. That they're not watching the same thing over and over again.
Right. And you're also not mixing all the nuances of, if you're out and you're in a recording studio, you're up 48 tracks, whatever. The drum kit alone could be
Right.
10 tracks. In
Yeah.
a typical television show, you've got a couple of microphones on the floor. You've got, some music to bounce to commercial, some music to come back. You got to roll in a package here and there. So I'm not minimizing it, but it's a very different environment. And your playback to your audience is very different. As long as things are crisp and clean and you can hear it, that's really all you need to make sure of. And the rest of it is, as we were talking about, is making sure everything hits on time.
Yes. Which is more important than the blend. Like the blend of music, the mix of music in the studio has to be beautiful to some point. You know what I mean? It has to work cohesively with the other parts of the song. With television, it's more like, I hear from executive producers all the time, like, hey, can they hear it? I don't care. Is it audible? Can people tell? Is there a noise? No noise? Okay, air it. Noise? All right, fix it. That's pretty much it.
Right.
And I mean, sometimes I'll EQ. I EQ some.
No,
some
you do a
shows.
good
It
job of
depends.
that. Don't minimize that. You do a real good job. But the other,
I EQ a ton. But only in certain collected instances. It's not like I'm like EQing every track. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
more like I want this person to sound really good, so I'm gonna do a really good job EQing this person, as opposed to EQing every track in the mix. That's just preposterous.
right. And in music, you're not worrying about we're coming to a break. Nobody's counting you have to hit this fader in this break. In
Yep.
television, that timing is flawless. You can't miss that. If we're going
Right.
to a break and we have to bump out with music, or you have to roll a package in, or something has to happen, you need to get that to that point. You can't pull mics up. That's where things become. You go on the air. You go on the air at that second.
Oh yeah.
Not a little later.
It's a show. It's
Right.
like you're playing your board like an instrument almost.
Yeah, great analogy.
Because you have to be in time with the band. The band being the rest of the crew. Like it's like music mixing is like painting a beautiful picture. You want to make the brush strokes right. You want to get the right blends of the paints on the canvas. But broadcast is like running an obstacle course. Like you have to time. It's two different things. You have to time your way through it. You have to make sure you don't get smacked in the face on the way to the finish line. And that's pretty much it for the differences. It's very, very black and white.
Cool. All right, we're out of time. Actually, we were out of time 5 minutes ago. So, but this was great, and I definitely want to get you back here. There's so much more we can talk about. You've become young at a young age. You've become really knowledgeable, and I love sharing that knowledge back and forth to you.
Thank you.
All right, my friend.
I appreciate you, Joe. Yo, good luck with everything with Ferris City. I'm really excited to see what happens with this.
Oh, yeah,
and I'm a part of Ferris City as well. So anybody watching this wants to reach out to me, feel free. I'm always on my phone.
Cool. All right, brother. Thank you much. I appreciate you.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for listening to today's show. We've got some really exciting online courses coming up on ferocity.com. See for yourself the exclusive details at ferocity.com and make sure you get on board for early notification of class opening, enrollment opportunities, and founding member benefits. Details at ferocity.com.